Welcome to Objections with Stan Willis. I'm not Stan Willis as we continue, but this is Stan Willis. Stan, how are you?
I'm not Mike.
See, if my name was in the title, it would make more sense. When people watch this now, they think
I want a T-shirt that says "Free Mike Morris."
Nate and I talked about this. So we were talking about Broad Street Radio because that's another program that we do.
Right.
That we would invite people to help us promote the show.
What do you call it, Broad Street? Do you do it on Broad Street?
There used to be women on it. No.
Yeah.
So the reason we did it is because the topics are broad and we didn't want to call it Main Street because that sounds like we're a financial institution. We actually lose money doing that show. Broad Street, we continue to lose money, but it's cooler.
Well, why not Fifth Street?
Because Grove City doesn't have a Fifth Street. We're recording in Grove City. I may not explain this. I am the mayor of Grove City. I was never elected, but I know everybody, and pretty much that's my role in that town.
Okay.
That, and I don't cut my grass on time. That's the two things I'm known for in my hometown.
Why not Groveport? I mean,
Groveport is like the New Jersey compared to New York. I mean, if you want to talk about culinary excellence, you want to talk about entrepreneurial skills.
Yeah, there's a Roosters in Grove City.
Yeah. And it used to be across the street. And you know what? They moved it to the other side of the street and moved Bob Evans over there. That's the kind of power that Grove City has.
Though, that there's a Graders in Grove City and there's not. Well, there's one at Hilliard now, but Grove City got a Graders before Hilliard did, and I was.
Well, you 1%ers aren't going to get everything.
I was a little bit salty about that.
They have salty items there.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
I used to have to go to Dublin or Upper Arlington to get Graders.
Listen to this snooty. If anybody's watching this on YouTube, just understand that Stan is used to truffles in all of his meals, and normally I'm eating out of a bag in a parking lot.
What is a truffle?
Interesting point. It is a some kind of a mushroomy thing. I watch a lot of these cooking shows with my daughter, and I go, I could never do that or that and that. And then I just learned what a truffle was the other day.
Because I don't know that I've ever had a truffle.
I believe a truffle is like $500.
I've seen like when
or
I go
pesos.
When I go to a certain restaurant chain in Central Ohio, I've seen truffle stuff on the menu. But I
think it's very expensive.
I have to admit that I'm not educated in the world of truffles.
Well, let me educate you on some food stuff you need to know. If you go through the Rally's drive-thru, you can get 2 burgers for $6.
Rally's is awesome.
That's what we know.
I love that.
Free shout out to Rally's, by the way. Love that chili stuff. It makes me sick for days. I love going there.
Right. I love the burgers. Did you know that White Castle just had a birthday, by the way?
I did know that.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen when they get people
like 100 years of White Castle or something like that?
Yeah, 100 years of culinary disaster.
100 years of little burgers with holes in them. It's
Do you know that people get married in a White Castle every year? Like there's some big event across the country?
Really?
Now, here's what's exciting. Stan is an officiant, right?
Do
you have your wallet here?
I do.
Because we can I'm not making this up.
I do.
You should be the one to marry people in a White Castle so that you can get the divorce case when it rolls out 6 months later and the baby is somebody else's.
We actually don't do divorces.
Yeah, but you could do this. Do you do a lot of weddings?
I've only ever done one wedding. See,
okay.
This is my Universal Life Church Ministries.
Look at this. So if you want to know what a cult looks like,
it's not a cult. Conan O'Brien has one of those.
Conan O'Brien is probably in a cult.
And Richard Branson has one of those.
Also a cultist. Why are we not understanding this? They're in the 1%. Haven't you seen the thing about Bill Maher?
But I'm not in the 1%. I'd like to be in that cult, but I'm not in that cult.
This card. If you get this.
How do I get in the 1% cult? If anybody can help me out with getting in the 1% cult,
I think this is step 1.
Know.
This is your door buzzer to get in.
What do you need? Like 10 billion? I mean, what's the number that puts you in the 100% club? I want to be there. I
don't think it's money. I think it's body count. So if you are willing to kill 2 or 3 people getting off a bus in California,
that's going to make it impossible for me.
I believe in you. I don't think anything's impossible for Stanley.
I don't think I could kill people
legally
or illegally. I don't think I could.
All right. I want to know where you stood there. Well, let's talk about blood contracts today because
speaking of body count and marrying people.
Well, I called Stan roughly a month ago and I had let's call it a query. And I said, to the extent, Stan, this guy is screwing my client. Can you say that on
national TV?
I can if I say it like this. I said, I'm going to murder someone because we have a contract with them and they didn't fulfill it. And Stan said, let's do it. No, that's not what he said. He said, let's look at the contract. Let's go through what they said they would do and you took a very professional approach, which I did not appreciate because my daughter's in the car learning new words that I say only at softball. And I said, this is unjust. And you said there are options, right? You're never out of options if you have a contract. So
you just might not like any of them.
But that's the other thing you said, which I thought was good because, again, I think we all think we've signed a deal for someone to do work or for they're going to fulfill this contract. When people sign contracts, what should their expectation? I know it varies depending on whatever it is, but if it's well spelled out in the contract and somebody, I think we take people's word for things more than we have the expectation they're going to fulfill the job.
Well, my what I always say when I'm talking to somebody about their contracts and a contract is only as good as the intent of the parties to fulfill the contract.
You're saying both parties, the person that's paying and the person that said they're going to do the work.
Right, both those signatories to the contract. The purpose of the contract is basically to set expectations, but also to set damages and recourse. I mean, that's generally what happens in the contract. So if somebody, the problem that we kind of have in our world is we've got this belief that if we do it with contracts, we do it with laws, we believe that if the law says you can't speed, you can't go more than 70 miles an hour, well, then you can't do it. It's impossible. But the fact is, if you drive, lots of people drive faster than 70 miles an hour.
Sammy Hagar can't drive 55.
Right. Sammy, he can't, but he looks good. Have you seen a picture of him lately? Sammy looks good.
That shows you what tequila does for you.
Tequila, yeah. I mean, have you seen the meme of him and Bill?
Oh, him, Bill Clinton. Yeah. What tequila does to you. Yeah.
All right, we'll move on. I was talking about contracts. Anyway, so if you sign a contract with somebody that says they're going to deliver 40 widgets and the widgets are going to look like this, or they say it's T-shirts and the T-shirts are going to say this and blah, 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 and they deliver it to you and there's 30 and people are like, he can't do that. And I'm always like, he just did. Right. I mean, the contract has no real coercive power if the person doesn't intend to follow it. The same as laws don't have coercive power to prevent people from doing things that are illegal. I mean, murder's been illegal since the inception of this country. Yet every
that's
day
your opinion.
People get murdered. It is my opinion. But anyway.
Is it your legal opinion?
It is my legal opinion.
All right, then I guess that's the law on this stupid show. Go on.
Hey, I'm the expert. You have to listen.
You're the expert on law. Like, I know a lot of other things.
I am the expert on everything.
What was the number one song in 1968?
Exactly.
Thank you. Once again, I've been counselor. I've been proven right on the show. But go ahead. So we're talking about contract law.
Number one law in 1960. Song in 1960. I'm going to have to look that up now.
Google it.
I'm going to be like, what was the number one? You Googling that, Nate? Let us know what that is, okay? Because now the people want to know. We have to provide.
He is Googling it.
We have to provide this service.
I didn't even know when we record this that he's awake. Like, I didn't know he was listening. He has headphones on, but I assumed he was listening to music. I told you.
Yeah.
The Beatles. Who the hell is that? Anyway. That's another interesting contract situation, music contracts, but we're going to get there because I
guess my point is that the contract doesn't restrain conduct. What it does is it defines expectations. So you're saying my expectation is that you're going to provide X number of T-shirts by this date that look like this. And when you do that, I'm going to pay this. So that's defining the expectations between the parties. Then the contract will further say, if you don't deliver, here's what happens. If you don't pay, here's what happens. Here's what our recourse is. But all those enforcement things become very expensive.
What I find, when they say, "Oh, there's a binding contract," for take website companies, right? So they'll say, "We're going to produce 150,000 impressions. We're going to do this and this and this, and it's all X amount of dollars." And when it's always a round number. Mm-hmm. So it's 3,500, 4,500. There's never 3,251, right?
It's easier to do math that way,
right? Well, I'm sure that's an accounting thing because when you start out, you're probably like, just make it all end in a 0 or a 5 or whatever. So,
well, if it ends in a 0, it's easy to divide by 10.
It's easy for you. This guy over there, you know what I mean? So, one of my biggest things that I always encounter is they always want you to sign this contract.
Yep.
No one reads the contract.
Nope.
Right? So, if you don't have a lawyer to look through this and you signed it willingly, right? There's no duress to make you do it. You just signed away basically your rights to any expectation, in my opinion, right?
Most, so you didn't bother. Most of the time, most of the contracts that you sign, especially if you ever take the time to read a software contract.
Well, how many times do you do that with iTunes?
It's frightening, actually.
Like every time they update your Microsoft or iTunes, I never read it. I just click accept, and I'm like, yeah, I know you're spying on me. Fantastic. Continue to do so. I just want to be able to listen to my music. But I also think that employment contracts are written that way too. They're in favor of the employer.
Almost all the time. Yeah.
Right? So the person that looked over my employment contract, and I haven't had a job in 12 years, so please don't hit me up for money. But when I worked in corporate radio...
You told me you had a job.
I lied to you. That's different than telling you. Okay?
This puts a whole new pallor on our relationship, I got to tell you.
We still have to finish the show. It doesn't matter. So
I didn't sign a contract.
That is true. I don't do contracts whatsoever. So come take advantage of me, not you. So when I'm looking at the employment contract that we would have to sign, it was like 4 pages long. Everything was protecting them. So I brought this because there were non-competes in there, right? So a lot of employment places want to put non-competes in. If they found something, so originally it was a 90-day non-compete, then a 6-month non-compete, then it became a year. Mm-hmm. The language kept protecting them, but taking more rights away from me to go somewhere else.
Yes.
So I bring it to a lawyer friend of mine, and he says,
"That's your problem."
Yeah, never be friends with a lawyer.
You thought your lawyer could be your friend, but they can't.
No. I wasn't going to pay him. I just say, "Hey, look at this." So I didn't. And he didn't even say he was a good lawyer. I said he was a lawyer.
Oh, okay.
But his wife also worked at the company, and
so enlighten me. In the world of Michael Morris,
yeah,
what makes a good lawyer?
Number 1, do they have commercials? Number 2, do they have flowing locks? Number 3, do they have an office? Those are the only 3 things that matter. Like every lawyer I know, I win 98% of my cases, right? So I'm like, how could that be? Because there's a lawyer on the other side that wins 2.
We never lose, man.
What is the who? You've gone to court, right? And you've been like you've looked across the table. You're like, that guy's getting boned. Does that guy do you see the same guy over? Andy Griffith beat the same guy every single time.
He did.
Impossible. Yeah. Like there's got to be lawyers who lose 50% of the time because you guys can't win all the time.
I agree.
So this lawyer that I went to said he won 70% of his cases. But it was free, so I'm like 70% is 100% not going to cost me any money.
The thing about it is, when a lawyer says I win X number of cases, it's kind of in some ways a meaningless statement. You really need to understand what they mean by that.
What do they mean?
Because like I forget the exact percentages, and I don't want to be guilty of making something up off the top of my head.
Because you'll lose a case.
A very, 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 very high percentage of cases that involve attorneys settle before they go to court. So if I settle a case, am I counting that as a win? Am I counting that as a loss?
I would.
I mean, in ostensibly now, think about this. If I have a personal injury case, for instance, and we settle that prior to an adjudication, both sides could claim that they won.
Okay, but where's the 2% of times that you lose?
Well, the only time that I think you have a clear loss is when you go to court and get a ruling. But even in that sense, so for instance, you could take a personal injury case to court and you could win. They could say, yeah, this person's at fault. They should pay you. but then they could say there's no damages. So
you didn't get anything out of it, but you didn't lose.
Yay, I won, but I also lost. And the other side could be, yay, I won, but I also lost.
But doesn't that make you crazy as a lawyer, apparently, that all these other people in your industry will say, I never lose, I never lose, I never lose. Like at some point, like I the think game.
It's just puffing. It's a sales technique, or maybe sometimes it might. It might be an ego technique. It's not something that's necessarily meaningful. And honestly, as an attorney, I would say that my job is not always to win cases. That's not my job. My job is to provide you with representation so that you get so that you get the best shake that you can get under our legal system.
But what if I only want to win?
Well, I mean, good luck.
Like, what if whoa. Do you want me to write the commercial though? Willis Spangler Starling. I mean, good luck.
No.
I mean, what kind of?
No, I wouldn't say that. But what I'm trying to say. So, for instance, let's say it's a criminal case. Let's say you have a criminal case, and guy runs into a shopping mall, shoots 10 people, got 47 eyewitnesses, video cameras, blah 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 blah. He's entitled to an attorney, right? And the court's going to appoint that person an attorney.
And I'm sure it'll be the best one.
Right. Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, you've got all this evidence and everything. So now when you're looking at that case, if you're the defense attorney, you're not gonna get this guy off. He's not gonna walk. He's not gonna be out shopping at Walmart next week. I mean, that's not going to happen. He's going to go to jail. I mean, it's going to happen. So what your job now becomes is well, let's make sure that the system has treated him fairly, and under the system that he gets. I mean, if you're in a state that has a death penalty, then does he get the death penalty? Does he not get the death penalty? What's his mental state? I mean, there are a lot of things that you look at. But your job in that case is not necessarily to go in and win the case at all costs. Your job is to make sure that he gets the representation he deserves.
Do you know what's funny about that? Do you remember the freeway sniper?
Yeah.
If you look in the yearbook, he's 2 little faces away from me.
Really?
Yeah. And so same buddy that I didn't pay tells me his firm took that case or started to look at it.
Right.
And they said mentally he just wasn't there. But in that case, what you just said kind of played out. Like, instead of him getting the death penalty, I think that he's eligible for parole in like 4 or 5 years. So we're trying to get him to come out and play on our alumni softball team.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't be a good idea, but who'd mess with us? You know what I mean? Like, we're almost 50 years old. We don't want to run around, but it'd be like, Charles, go get that guy. You know what I mean?
So let me play that out for you, like in a PI situation, a personal injury situation. If you're in an accident, my job is to make sure that you recover for the damages you're supposed to get. That's my job, right? It's not necessarily to take it all the way to court and win. And there are many times when taking it all the way to court actually costs you more money than it's worth.
Right.
So my job isn't just to come out swinging and fight everything tooth and nail as hard as I can. My job is to say, realistically, this is what this case. So let's say I say your case is valued at $40,000. I say I think realistically that's what it's worth. And let's say that we go back and forth, and we provide and we do the negotiation, and we come up and the final offer is $38,000. So we have options now. I can file this case. We can go to court. We can fight it, but it's going to cost somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 to get that case to trial, right? So if I go all the way through that, go all the way to trial and win your case, and I have to get an additional $20,000 to even break even.
Right.
So if I think the best we can prove to this jury is $40,000, if I think that's the best that we can get from a jury, then I'm going to tell take the 38,000. It's going to cost you 20,000 to go to trial. And you're going
But see, you already know, like you've already done that research. You already know what it's going to be. So you're just advising them. So if they say, no, I want to push this further, this is an interesting question. So they have a contract with you, correct?
They do.
So who's in control at that point? Like you're an advisor, right? You're telling them, here's best case scenario. If they keep telling you, I want to keep going and they're going to pay you, you are retained by them to do what they ask, right? Because I was thinking.
Well, the way I would look, the way we would approach that is if the case is a good case, the client's going to make a good witness, and they're dead set and have the money and want to go to trial. We would, in the scenario that I said before, we would probably say, I think you should take this. If you want to go to trial, here's what you need to do. And if somebody chooses to go to trial, we'll do that for them. But they're doing that with the knowledge that we believe the most likely outcome is not necessarily favorable for them, right?
You're discussing like a marriage contract because I signed one of those.
Right. You signed a marriage contract?
So you have to, right? By law in the state of Ohio. Now, here's what I figured out. It cost me $22,000 to get divorced. If I had thrown her in the trunk and driven her out to Vegas, gas money at the time was about $179 a gallon. It would have cost me less than $2,000. But no, my lawyer said we have to do this the right way. So why do you guys give bad advice like that? I could have saved myself $20,000.
Well, you could have found yourself in jail.
Well, it was a long time ago. It was yesterday.
All the free sex that you need.
You know what? That is a good thing about there's no contracts in Vegas, and that's why everything stays in Vegas,
right?
Except gonorrhea.
So anyway, I guess my thing is that if we take this to court, let's say we take this to court and we get a $40,000 verdict, right? I'm going to claim that as a win. I won. I told you what I was going to win, and I got that, right? But if you're the client, it doesn't feel like a win because you just spent $20,000 to get what you could have gotten without going to court. So the amount of money that you're getting after going through the whole trial thing is significantly reduced. So that's why I say my job is to give you the best advice that I can give you about your case based upon my knowledge and experience and how I know what I know about the system and how it works. That's my job. My job is not to go out and win cases.
But I think the misnomer is that people, again, because we see television shows, you see lawyers on TV or radio or whatever, bus signs. When you see that, you think that person is like, they're going to go get me my verdict. They're going to get me my money. I think that's the way it's looked at. Because we look at it as a consumer, like we're a customer. So I've been wronged and I want you to financially make me whole.
Right.
The situation we were talking about, the difference would have been, let's say it was a $5,000. You didn't do your job for $5,000 for 1 month. Like you said, it might cost more money to even do this. Like the retainer and all that could end up being $3,000 to do it. Do you want to do this? That's what I thought was cool is that you gave the other side. You gave the potential and lost revenue or cut your ties and move on. Versus, I think that my friend was going to let's sue them. Well, that lawsuit could cost you $20,000. So now you lost 25 with the chance you get nothing out of it.
Right. Because, and the other thing that's, I mean, there's kind of, there's a lot of, I'll say quasi-science behind.
Which is a small trollish looking person.
Exactly. And there's a lot of small trollish looking persons.
Especially lawyers. They're all midgets.
Behind the whole idea of trials and how to prevent things and how to pick a jury and all this kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of effort that goes into kind of trying to do all these things to make sure or to try to get yourself in a position to get the best possible outcome. But what becomes problematic is people as a whole are unpredictable, and juries also are unpredictable. And sometimes, because one of the things that the lawyers like to do after a trial is over is we like to
get high.
Maybe some, but we like to go and basically debrief the jury. And so we'll we'll talk to the jury about, okay, what did you think was important? What didn't you think was important?
You get to talk to them after the fact?
You can. Yeah. You can talk to the jury in civil trials, not in criminal trials so much, but in civil trials, we can sit with the jury afterwards and say, what did you like? What didn't you like? And it's surprising how blunt they are. I mean, and honestly, sometimes it's like, we found this witness to be more believable than that witness. Sometimes it's like, we really thought this lawyer had it together and presented it well, and this lawyer didn't. Sometimes it's like, well, this particular fact that nobody had considered was important, we thought it was really critical to what was going on. I mean, it's juries are on some level they're predictable, and then on another level they're very unpredictable. And so going to trial, you really, if you're going to go do a trial, you really need to be pretty far apart.
You kind of amped me up. I do want to go do a trial now. Okay. Could I do that?
Could you do a trial?
Yeah.
Well,
before you answer, I said I believe in you and you could do anything that you want.
You can get chosen to be on jury.
No. I want to actually, I want to prosecute someone.
You want to prosecute someone for what?
I haven't figured it out yet, but you have connections. You could get me in there. I'm going to let you work on it because we've run out of time today, but I'm pretty sure by the time we do our next show, I will be suing someone. Okay. That's what I will be suing someone. This has been Objections with Stan Willis. We'll see you next week.